Afternoon, everybody, and thank you for attending today's webinar. So we have an extra special webinar today. We're actually going to be covering the standards as we normally do, Standard 2.1, 2.2 and DPR 6.1. But we're also going to go through some other changes that ASQA are making. So there was an announcement at the start of May that ASQA are changing the initial registration requirements for setting up an RTO. So I'm going to be going through some of those today. Some of you may have received my newsletter update, so the Vivacity update, where we covered what those changes are going to be and how it's going to affect training organisations. It's not going to be the sole focus, and we're going to go through that at the end. Why is that important for people who are currently RTOs? Because, of course, when they're going to change a process that's for initial registration, that's also going to affect re-registration, and in particular, anybody who is registered within the last 2 years. Or if you're an RTO and you're now looking at adding CRICOS to your scope of registration, that's also going to affect your registration status as well. So we're going to be having a look at the new changes for initial registration that ASQA have been submitted. I'd be interested to see whether who's actually received my ASQA update or Vivacity update that I sent out last week. About a week and a half ago. Did you receive? So I'll just go through those. Yes, and red. Yes, not red yet. I'm just going to send you a poll. No, can you please send? So I'll get you to fill in this survey so that I can actually see from the people online, what did you, have you actually seen it? Because one thing I'm a bit worried about is who's actually had on our mailing list, and are they getting our updated mailing list? So please, just pop in if you've read it, yes, but not read yet. No, can you please send it to me? If you need it sent to you, you can just pop your name in the chat box and I can send that to you. But also it's on our website, so you can actually access it on our website. So you just go to our website, and we've got a whole page there on the new process for initial registration. So check it out. What we're also going to be doing is doing another Vivacity update. This one was based on the new changes, but also the ASQA webinar, where they in the webinar they went through what are the changes, but they also went through, it's just the ASQA briefing webinars that we attended on the 23rd of May. So this one has a bit more information about what was affecting initial registrations, but they talked about all sorts of things, audit processes and what's changing and things like that. So so I'm going to be going through that today, and I think I've got everybody has, so everybody's posted. Excellent, thank you. So about half. So there's 4 people who did not receive. So Stuart, I'll add you to the list so that you can get onto our mailing list as well. So that way you can get updates on our mailing list. So anybody who would like to register for updates on our mailing list, they can also just register through our website. So I'm just sending you over the website details so you can actually register on our website to get, and anybody can get updates. So that's all our Vivacity updates that we have on there as well. So if you just fill in those details, if you're not needing anything in particular, you can just put general consult in there, and you won't have to put all your details about what else you might be interested in doing. Okay, so the other thing that you can do is if you download the free ebook, you can also subscribe to our newsletter as well. because we don't actually have a monthly newsletter that we send out. What we do is we actually have, this will be a better link than the other one I sent. We actually have what we call Vivacity updates, because most of our updates are on social media. So you'll see it on there. But whenever we need something bigger, we'll send it out through our mailing list. So we'll just send that out. But we regularly put posts on our social media. So I highly recommend that you get on, in particular, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. We're on those. So I highly recommend that you get onto those to get updates on what we do. So all of the updates are on our website. So if you go have a look on our website, top left-hand corner, we've got all our social media on there. So you can actually get access to all of our social media accounts. So we have a range. So if you're not a big Facebook person, we also have LinkedIn as well. So you can get onto there. And we also have a Twitter account. So they're the main ones. LinkedIn's been all aflutter with a lot of chatter about what's happening with the new ASQA changes. So highly recommend you get on to LinkedIn as well and check that out. We have a page on LinkedIn, so you can register for updates on the LinkedIn page, and you'll see our posts on there. So we have regular posts on there. We have things in particular about anything that's happening with the industry at the moment as well. So you can get those updates with things that are happening in the industry. Okay, I'm going to turn off the video because that just slows down the whole streaming with the webinar. So I'll get back online later, but I'll just turn off the webcam for the moment. Okay, thank you for attending today's session. We'll launch straight into it. Okay, so today's standards, we're going to be looking at standard 2.1 to 2.2, which is all about implementing a quality assurance system throughout your organisation, and how are you managing your continuous improvement. We'll also be looking at your quality indicator reporting is due at the end of this month. So we'll also be looking at the quality indicator reporting and what you need to do with regards to the quality indicator reporting. So we'll be reviewing that too today. Okay, so all right, so let's begin. So this webinar forms part of your continuous improvement process under standard 2.2, which is the standard we're reviewing today. Following this webinar, you should hold a monthly meeting, and at that monthly meeting, you should minute that you attended this webinar, and that what did you learn from this webinar, what changes are you going to make due to this webinar, and so you should also review your policies and procedures, your forms and documentation, and identify if there's any updates that you need with regards to any policies and procedures and the documentation. So, all right, I'm just opening up a couple of things as well while I'm here. Alrighty. So the first one is complying with legislation. The RTO ensures it complies with these standards at all times, including where services are being delivered on its behalf. This applies to all operations of the RTO within its scope of registration. If there's any non-compliances with any other clauses, this one is also non-compliant. And that's basically it with that clause 2.1, is if you're non-compliant with any other clause, you're also non-compliant with standard 2.1. That's that one. Okay, so we launch straight into standard 2.2. So standard 2.2 is that you have a process in place to systematically monitor your training and assessment strategies and practices to ensure that you have ongoing compliance with standard 1. This should include a systematic way of how you evaluate and use the outcomes of the feedback that you've received, so any data that you've collected, and how you use that data to improve your practices within your organisation. So we'll be looking at some of the strategies that are in our policies and procedures that you should have implemented or going to implement into your organisation to ensure ongoing compliance against the standards. So one of the main ways that you can ensure that you are maintaining, that you are keeping up to date with all the data that you're collecting and having a continuous improvement strategy is you collect data from a range of different sources, so including industry surveys where you should be conducting industry consultation at least once a year, where you do a formal process for conducting industry surveys of what is it that industry wants with their training and assessment, and how can you improve those practices. When you do the industry consultation in a formal process, all of that data that you collect should go into improving your training and assessment strategies, which should be updated at least once a year. We have that scheduled in your continuous improvement cycle for January of each year. The training and assessment strategies are quite a bulky part of your compliance requirements, and keeping those up to date is a very important part of your continuous improvement. So it's really important that you spend some time on updating those training and assessment strategies. So we do that generally in January, and the reason why is because it's not as busy generally within an RTO. You could do industry surveys at the end of the year, and then with that feedback that you get from industry surveys, you incorporate that into your training and assessment strategies. Now, you might be an organisation that collects data on a regular basis from industry, so you should have some sort of register or somewhere where you're putting all of that feedback that you're receiving, so that when you go to update your training and assessment strategies, you're going back to that industry consultation. Now, the best way to formalise industry feedback that you've received, or student feedback or trainer and assessor feedback, is by holding a monthly meeting, so the monthly quality and compliance meeting. And at that monthly meeting, as a standing agenda item, is you include industry consultation. And that should include who have you spoken to, what did you learn, and how are you improving your practices based on the data that you've received. Now, that can be from industry, students, trainers, employers. It can be from a range of areas, but they're the main areas that you should be collecting data from, and then identifying how you're going to improve your practices based on that data that you've received. So that's collecting the data. When you analyze the data, it's a review process where you analyze the data to gain a better insight into your productivity. So you should be looking at the documentation that you've received. So all the data that you've received from industries, students, trainers, analysing that and identifying how you're going to improve it. Now, the best place to analyse that would be at your monthly Q&C meetings. So we recommend that you put it in there, and then action items should be identified at the Q&C meeting on how you're going to act on that data that you've collected. So that's where we get to act, using the data collected to improve training and assessment practices. And that's what it's all about. So any data that you're collecting should be used for improving your practices. It shouldn't be data, like I've been into many RTOs where I found the quality indicator feedback summary reports in a box under a desk where no one ever actually touched them again. They collected the data, but they never actually acted on the data or did anything to improve the practices based on the data that they've collected. That's not what collecting data is all about. Collecting data is about how are you going to improve your practices based on that data that you've collected. Oh, sorry, move to the next slide. Okay. So in the quality and compliance manual, you'll see that we've got a continuous improvement strategy. If you go onto Unicorn as well, you'll see that we have a document that's called a continuous improvement strategy. If you haven't looked at that yet, you should be going onto Unicorn and downloading that continuous improvement strategy, because that's a really good document for identifying what should you be doing as part of your continuous improvement. So we've actually created a whole process around continuous improvement strategy through this document. So I'm just going to download that right now and open that up so you can have a look at it. And then I've got another document that we've just created today, because we've realised that there's a lot of people who most probably are not looking at their continuous improvement on a regular basis. So we've created a new poster that you can put up in the office. So I'm just going to switch over so you can see my desktop. Where is desktop? Here we go. Yes. Okay. So this is the continuous improvement strategy document. I'm just going to show you what we've got here. So page width, just get rid of that. So this document is the continuous improvement strategy document that's within Unicorn with all of your documents. This document explains all the data that you're collecting, why you're collecting that data, and how are you going to review that data on a monthly basis. So in there, we've got every single form, the type of data that's collected on that form, who are you collecting the data from, when you will be collecting it, how you will be analysing that data, acting on that data, and monitoring that data on a monthly basis, and who's responsible for that data to be collected and what standards does that relate to. So you'll see that in the Q&C manual. This document really explains what every form is all about. It's like a quick snapshot of every single form that's in the documentation that you get with your membership, and it's in under the documentation within Unicorn, where you can download all those documents. This is a really important document because it gives you a snapshot, and it means you don't have to read every single policy and procedure in the Q&C manual to identify what are the requirements of every form. So if you haven't done so yet, you should get access to this continuous improvement strategy where we outline every document within there. Now, the other one that we've created that you get access to now, so sorry, I'll just see if that's there. What I'll do is I'll go through these ones. This is the agenda document that you can use for your monthly meetings. So this is one that we recommend for distributing prior to the meeting. And then you have your minutes. This is your minute template that you can use for minuting your meetings. And in here we have items that you should be reviewing on a monthly basis. So this minute template, this will be branded when you download it from Unicorn. On there will be all of your information for your organisation. So each month you should be holding a quality and compliance meeting, and that's what you should be doing following this webinar. Is either you should have it scheduled to occur maybe on the following Monday or maybe on the same week that your webinar is held. So this webinar is held on the first Monday of each month. So you could have the first Tuesday or the first Wednesday or first Thursday each month where you hold your monthly Q&C meeting. And at that Q&C meeting, you should be reviewing your opportunities for improvement register. So any opportunities for improvement that were identified in the last month, what was identified and what action is going to be taken from that opportunity for improvement that was identified. You should also be reviewing your WHS incidents register, complaints and appeals register, quality indicators. So they're your quality indicator feedback forms that you're receiving from students. You should be reviewing that and identifying any data that was collected and how you're going to improve your practices based on that. Each month you should include all industry consultation that you've conducted within the last month. Who did you speak to? What did you speak about? What practices are you improving based on, and that's what should go in the minutes here, what practices are you going to improve based on the feedback that you received during industry consultation? You should also be looking at the continuous improvement cycle, which I'm going to bring up, and I don't know why it's not coming up in my document, so I will bring that up. I've just got to download that so you can access that as well. So I'm just going to bring that up. So flip that out of the way over here. So as I stated, we now have a continuous improvement cycle poster. So I'm just opening that up for you now. You can download this from Unicorn now. So that's this continuous improvement cycle poster. So this is a document. So it'll be branded with your RTO information, but you should generate this from Unicorn, download it, print it, and put it up next to your screen on the desk at your office. So somewhere where you're going to be able to see it on a regular basis. This cycle includes every standard that you're going to be reviewing on a monthly basis. So it will give you a reminder. This month, we're focusing on standard 2.1, 2.2, and DPR 6.1, which is your quality indicator reporting. I've also got on this poster reporting dates. So dates that you should be submitting your reports. So your VETMIS report, your annual declaration of compliance, your quality indicator summary report. And also once a year, you should be holding an annual internal audit. We're going to be going through that further today as well. And you should also be submitting your if you do have TAE on your scope, you should be reviewing your TAE products this month as well. So I've got someone sending me a message, just a hi. Hi, Lily. You can, if you have any questions whatsoever, just pop them in the chat box on the left-hand side there, and I'll answer those questions as I go through the webinar. So if you have any questions, just pop them in. So I highly recommend, if you haven't, this poster only went up today when I was reviewing the process for continuous improvement. We thought about it and we thought, this would be a really good idea if you had this as a poster that's nice and easy to review. So download this poster, laminate it, and have it next to your screen as a reminder. We've had a few issues this month where a few clients have been notified by ASQA that their registration is going to be cancelled because they did not submit their annual declaration of compliance and or they didn't submit their VETMIS reporting. So it's really important that to remember that you've got to submit your reports on as they're required. So that's the February, March and June reporting dates that are there. Your quality indicator reports are also a really important report that you need to submit at the end of this month. It's been an issue because a lot of RTOs have not been submitting their reports, and in the past, ASQA have just said, just giving you a warning. Now they're not. You're getting your registration cancelled. If you do not submit your reports, you are at risk of your registration being cancelled. We've had 2 clients in the last 2 weeks who did not submit their a VETMIS report for it that was due last February, and now they're getting their registration cancelled. The only way to get around it, so as a new RTO, do I need to submit quality indicator report until this end of June? So if you are currently registered as an RTO, you must submit a report. Currently registered. So registered as an RTO or CRICOS provider, you must submit your reports. All of these reports must be submitted. It doesn't matter whether you have had any students or not. You still need to submit the report. So it doesn't matter if you've had any students complete or even commence training. If you've had no students whatsoever, you still must submit all 3 of these reports on an annual basis. So in February, you must submit your VETMIS report. Every March, you must submit your annual declaration of compliance. And every June, you must submit your quality indicator summary report. If you have not submitted your VETMIS report and your annual declaration of compliance, and you're already registered, you're currently registered, ASQA are mostly trying to track you down right now to send you. They've mostly been already sending emails. The client we had a client today who received a letter in the mail from ASQA stating that they had not submitted either of their VETMIS report or their annual declaration of compliance. This was a previous client, I must state. They're not a current member. If you're a current member, we would remind you that these reports are due, and it's also in this continuous improvement cycle. So we've now created this poster to make it a bit easier. Print this out. Put it up next to your screen in your office. This reminds you what you should be focused on each month on your continuous improvement, but also when to submit your reports. This document is also in your quality and compliance manual. So the cycle is in the quality and compliance manual, and it also reminds you in there. It ties in with all the policies and procedures. If you are a casual trainer and you're just doing this webinar as part of your professional development, you don't need to submit any reports. So it's only those who are responsible for the compliance within their RTO. They should be holding this have this poster printed and next to their screen to remind them when the reports are due. As a trainer assessor, though, it's a really good idea for you to have a look at this continuous improvement cycle as well. These standards this month is more your requirements around submitting your monthly report as a trainer assessor, but some of the standards each month. So back in April, we looked at trainers and assessors and what were the requirements of trainers and assessors. This continuous improvement cycle is the cycle we use for the monthly webinars. So it's a reminder, okay, this month we're going to be reviewing Standard 2.1, 2.2 and DPR 6.1. Next month, we're going to be reviewing Standards 2.3, 2.4 and 8.3, which is all around third-party reportings. So that's a good one to remember. Have this poster up there because it's going to remind you what we're going to be discussing at the monthly webinars as well. So that's the continuous improvement cycle. Also found, this is just a direct copy and paste from the Q&C manual. So if you do not have access to the documents within Unicorn, you should get in contact with the person who does have access to those documents and ask them, tell them that Angela told you need to have a copy of this continuous improvement cycle. Get a copy of it from your management. So whoever has access to the documents, get a copy of this continuous improvement cycle so that you can have it as a reminder. Now, everyone should be putting into their diaries as an annual reminder that when you are to submit these reports. So at the start of the month, you should have a reminder that the VetMIS report is due. So at the start of February, you should have a reminder that it's due at the end of the month, and at the end of the month, a reminder to submit the report. And I'd do that a couple of days before the end of the month so that you remember that you've got to submit the report. So 28th of February is when the VetMIS report is due. You should have a reminder at least the week before to remind you to submit the report. Same with the annual declaration of compliance. And for June, you should have a reminder now at the start of the month that your quality indicator or summary report is due, and at the end of the month, you need to submit it. Only the CEO will receive an email that will remind them that these reports are due from ASQA, and it's only an email, it's not a letter. It's just an email that you'll get that will remind you of when these reports are due to be submitted. So you should have this cycle up. Okay, so when you will review your continuous improvement cycle, that's what I'm talking about there in your meeting minutes, that's what you're reviewing, is that cycle there. Now you have it as a poster, so you can use that as a poster. And in your minutes here, it should be, what did you review at that monthly meeting for the continuous improvement? So at the meeting, so this month there was be standard. So in here, you're going to put standard 2.1, 2.2 to 2.2, and also DPR, what are we up to, 5 or 6 or something, DPR 6.1. So you would also put DPR 6.1 is what you're reviewing, and what did you learn? So this month, I'm already telling you what you should put in your monthly meeting. This month is continuous improvement cycle poster. Action is print poster and display at desk. Update your diary to include all report due dates. So that's something you should be doing in your monthly meeting for this month, is including what we're reviewed at this monthly meeting, and this is something you should be putting into your minutes for this month's meeting, is that you need to print a poster and display at your desk and update your diary to include all the reports, and you also need to submit your quality indicator report at the end of this month. Sorry. Okay, So you should be putting, this is how you should be filling out your meeting minutes. Okay, so each month you also got your general admin and training issues, any changes to training packages. So if there was something that changed within a training package, you should be including that here. So what are those changes? If there's if you're in transition to teach out, or if a training package is being superseded, you should be minuting that here, what that process is. Any previous business arising, or business without notice. And they're all the things that you should be reporting on a monthly basis at your monthly Q&C meeting. So you should be entering, so each month you should have a minute report from your monthly meeting and what you discussed at that monthly meeting. So any opportunities for improvement, WHS, complaints and appeals, quality indicators, monthly industry consultation that you've conducted during that month, your continuous improvement cycle, and any general administration as well. Okay, so we'll go back now to the PowerPoint. And that's your monthly meetings. Having a look at that, and the continuous improvement cycle. Okay, so that's your continuous improvement strategy that I just went through. So simple process for continuous improvement is that you should collect feedback from industries, employers, trainers, and students, and then you should be reviewing that feedback at your monthly meeting. And how are you going to act on that monthly feedback as well? So, and the main one that you should be acting on is how are you adjusting your training and assessment, not only your strategies, but your practices as well, to improve those practices based on the feedback that you received. You should always be holding a monthly meeting, and at that monthly meeting you should be monitoring that feedback that you've received, and also monitoring how you're implementing those changes to improve those practices. We just had a look at the continuous improvement strategy, so that's one of the documents in Unicorn that you can download. And the different data that you're collecting is industry surveys. You might be conducting training needs analysis, which a training needs analysis is specific to a company or organisation. Your quality indicator data that you're collecting, and we're going to have a look at the quality indicator forms as well. So we can have a look at that. Hold on. I'll bring those up so we can have a look at those. Okay, so in the Unicorn documents, you've also got the quality indicator summary report, but you've also got the employer questionnaire, and you've got the learner questionnaire. So we've got those that you should be using, so you should be distributing these on a monthly basis, those quality indicator forms. So I'm going to be having a look at those forms as well, and you should have and I'm going to actually show you how to. So I'll go back to sharing the screen in a minute, and I can show you where you can get that quality indicator summary report. Okay, so as an RTO, you should also be conducting assessment validation sessions. There should be at least 2 a year in accordance with the policies and procedures. So you should be conducting assessment validation to identify whether your assessment tools are compliant with the performance criteria and assessment conditions of each unit of competency for each qualification on your scope of registration. So there should be evidence that you're collecting of assessment validation. Also your monthly meetings, your opportunity for improvement forms. You should also be getting student feedback from your students, and also in that feedback that you're receiving, you should be utilizing that feedback to improve your practices as well. So I'm just also going to bring up an opportunity for improvement form so we can have a look at that one, go through that one. Also, you've got your event miss data, your complaints and appeals, opportunities for improvement. Trainers should be submitting a report on a monthly basis. There's a trainer's report within the Unicorn, and in that trainer's report is an annual, monthly, on a monthly basis, your trainers should be reporting what they have seen during the last month. So what was the best class that they've had in the last month? What is the I'll go through the form. So anyway, we'll go have a look at that. Yep. So I'll start with the trainer's report, so we can have a look at that one. So this is a trainer's report that trainers should be submitting on a monthly basis. If you are a trainer or assessor online right now doing PD, this is part of your PD, this is a report that's on Unicorn. So your managers should be able to access this. If you're just doing PD, you won't have access to any of these documents. So if you're doing PD membership, you won't have access to any of these documents. But on a monthly basis, you should be reporting a trainer's report. So that trainer's report includes feedback on the operations of the RTO. So it gives an example of your best session student you had in the last month and why. Give an example of the most challenging session student you have had in the last month and how did you respond to that student. Do you believe one of your assessment tools needs validating? So this is where you can give feedback to the RTO as a trainer assessor on whether you think an assessment tool needs validating and why does it need validating. Did you identify that there was an assessment tool that needs some improving? So what specific area of the tool do you believe might need updating? Do you believe that your students were prepared for your class or visit last month? So, and if not, why? Why were they not prepared? What did they need? Do you believe your current training methods used need changing? Have you had any recent changes within the organisation that's affected you? Thank you, Michael, for your feedback. That's much appreciated. He's saying it's very relevant for those who can't see that. Do you believe that your current training methods need changing? Have you had any recent changes by the organisation that's affected you as a trainer assessor? If yes, what's the impact been? So it could have been a change in policies and procedures, could have been a change in documentation that has affected you. What suggestions would you make to further refine these changes? So all your trainers and assessors should be completing this feedback form on a monthly basis. And as the RTO manager or someone, the person responsible for compliance, you should be taking this feedback form, reviewing it at your monthly meeting and identifying, is there anything in here? So you should be reviewing it, discussing it at the monthly meeting, and then identifying, is there any practices that need to be improved based on this feedback that you're receiving from your trainers and assessors. More often than not, trainers and assessors are in the field and they're not able to attend the monthly meeting. Or they're not at the office to be able to give feedback on a regular basis. So that's why this form is being created. So your trainers and assessors can provide feedback on how to improve the practices within the RTO, give their point of view of what's happening. Have they got any student concerns at the moment that the RTO should be aware of? Has there been any disruptive behaviour and how did they deal with that disruptive behaviour? Have they completed an opportunity for improvement form, complaint and appeal form, complaint and appeals form, WHS incident form, or an assessment validation form in the last month? And that should be attached to this report and submitted on to management. So that's a trainer's report. I'll just go through some of the other documents. This is the opportunities for improvement form. So if you or a staff member or a student or maybe even industry who you're working with, employers that you're working with, have identified an opportunity for improvement within your organisation, this is the form that they complete. It's like a feedback form that they can give you, but it's an opportunity for improvement form where they've identified that there's an issue, but not only that, so they identify the details of a weakness, but also what corrective action should be taken to improve that. So they should be giving you feedback, coming to you with solutions, not just problems. So what feedback can they give you to improve the practices? So action required, so corrective action. So what's the root cause analysis that's required? So if yes, if there's a root cause that needs to be analysed, so what are the issues? This is where we outline what the underlying root cause is, who determined it, proposed action for long-term solutions, so corrective or preventative action that can be taken, and comments on effectiveness of action taken. So this is a really important form that you can use to identify opportunities for improvement within the organisation and corrective action that should be taken to improve those practices. Once you complete this form, you should submit it on a monthly basis. It should be reviewed at your monthly meeting. So all opportunities for improvement should be reviewed at the monthly meeting. And then you should identify, was there any action that was taken when it was reviewed at the monthly meeting? And you should identify it on this form. Was there a policy and procedure that needed to be updated due to the data, due to the feedback form, the opportunity for improvement form being submitted? And then this form needs to be entered into the opportunity for improvement register. So this is another way you can get feedback from students, trainers, other staff members within the organisation. It might also be through employer feedback where they can identify. So this is a range of areas here that you can tick off where it was identified. It could have been through an internal audit or an external audit. Like it could have been where Vivacity has come in and done an audit, where we've identified an action plan that you need to take in order to improve practices. That would be an opportunity for improvement that you could submit. So this is an opportunity for improvement form. Okay, so that's opportunities for improvement. This is the quality indicator. So this is employer quality indicator questionnaire form that should be completed. Now, this is if you're dealing with employers. Employers should be completing this form and then submitting it back to the RTO. This is what you should be submitting your data on, is these forms that are being submitted. So this is what's due at the end of this month, is your quality indicator reporting form. So this is the employer form. And then we also have the learner form. So every single student who attends your RTO should be completing a quality indicator learner questionnaire and submitting this back to the RTO. You should be then using this to identify a report that you're going to submit to ASQA. Now I'm just going to show you where you submit the report. So this page here is all about quality indicators on the ASQA website. So you should be checking this out. And on here, we have the quality indicator summary report. So this is the summary report here that you're going to submit. So RTOs who do not use the SMART system are required to submit this report on a monthly basis. So you basically fill in this form and then you submit it through via email. So you just complete this form. So you put your RTO ID number here, your legal name, how many surveys did you distribute, how many did you receive back, and then you should do a ratio of how many responses you've received from what you've distributed. So the forms you distributed, received, and then a percentage ratio of what you have received back of those forms. Learner engagement, you have to distribute to 100% of your students, but not everyone gets them back. Some RTOs, what they do is they won't issue a certificate unless the student has returned that learner engagement form, so the quality indicator form. It's up to you what you want to do, but we recommend that you should get them back as much as possible because there's information about what they think of the RTO and the way you delivered your training and assessment and things like that. So you should also, what are trends or responses, statistics that you've got back? What did you identify in that form? So in the form, you're going to receive feedback from students on, so that's just the general information about the student, but it's feedback on what they thought about the training and assessment. So about your training, I developed the skills expected from this training. So was there anything in this learner questionnaire that you identified that you can use for improving your practices within your organisation? Survey information feedback. So what were the expected or unexpected findings? What does the survey feedback tell you about the organisation's performance? So this is your feedback on what you think. So you should be doing this at this month's monthly meeting, is identifying what feedback did you receive, what were unexpected findings, and what did the survey feedback tell you about your organisation's performance. Improvement actions. So what opportunities for improvement or corrective action? So we have an opportunity for improvement form where it includes corrective action. So from that feedback that you've received, what are some opportunities for improvement that you've identified? That's what you should put in there. And how will or do you monitor the effectiveness of these actions? So that should be, you should be putting in there, you hold a monthly quality and compliance meeting. At that meeting, you discuss opportunities for improvement, which includes student feedback that you've received and how you action and report on those feedbacks. Okay, if you don't have any students, good question. If you don't have any students, you still need to submit this quality indicator report, so annual summary report. So you just put 0 surveys issued, 0 surveys received, and 0 responses. So that's what you put in there. And for both learner and employer, you can put some feedback in there if you want to about what you've seen and what you've improved, what practices you've improved based on other feedback you received. But you can basically put nil, 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 nil all across here. But here you would put that you monitor the effectiveness of action that identified through your monthly quality and compliance meeting. So even if you haven't had any students and you haven't received any forms back, you should still fill in this form and submit it. I do not want to see any of our current members getting a letter from ASQA stating that they did not submit their quality indicator annual summary report, because you should be attending this webinar and you should be identifying it and then submitting your report based on your annual summary. So, okay, so both of those you're able to get from the ASQA website, and this is, so it's got to be submitted by the 30th of June, and you email it to qualityindicator@asqa.gov.au. So that's how you submit it. You can also use the smart software. I think they're transitioning the smart software out, but this is the best and easiest way to submit your quality indicator data, is just by filling in that form and you email it to this address. You can also see this policy and procedure within the Q&C manual under DPR 6.1 in the Q&C manual, so you should have a look at that. That's for the RTO side. If you're just doing CRICOS membership and you're not doing RTO membership as well, you won't have the quality indicator, you won't have the quality and compliance manual for RTO, because that's only in the RTO side. We do have some people who are doing CRICOS who are on here. We will be doing a standalone webinar for CRICOS as well soon. Okay. All right, so that's documents that you should be submitting. So I'll just quickly go through. That's the industry survey form, which you can download from Unicorn as well. And that's a survey form that you should be distributing on a regular basis. That's the trainer's report that we've already reviewed. That's the quality indicator forms that we've already reviewed as well. So you should be reviewing those on a monthly basis at your Q&C meeting as well. And this quality indicator report is due at the end of this month. That's the opportunity for improvement form. So we've just done a quick review of the opportunity for improvement form as well. So it's for identifying improvements to training systems and practices. Everyone in your organisation should be encouraged to complete this opportunities for improvement form. It's also identified in the student handbook, and it's in the back of the student handbook. So students it's in the student handbook for them to complete an opportunity for improvement form as well. So you may get them from students as well. WHS incident form is also in the back of the student handbook. That's you only minute that if there was WHS instances, if there was a WHS incident. So if there wasn't any, you just minute as nil instances reported. So you only report that on your monthly meeting, on your quality and compliance meetings, if there was actually a incident that was reported. Complaints and appeals, same thing. You only minute that if there was a complaint and appeal form submitted. We're only going to go quickly over this because we go into this in much more detail in the month when we do quality complaints and appeals, which is, now I've got the cycle up, complaints and appeals are done in November. So we review that in November. So you can review that later in November, where you can also look at previous webinars where we've looked at complaints and appeals. But you only need to minute it if you've had a complaint and appeal that month. So you should be holding regular meetings, and that regular meeting, it should be a quality and compliance meeting, and you should be scheduling it on a regular day each month, as I stated earlier. So it should be scheduled for after you hold your have your monthly webinar. So you could do it on a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or the following week following the webinar. I recommend you do it in the same week that we do the membership webinar. And the reason why is so that it's still fresh in your memory. You can hold it on the same day as the webinar if you wanted to, or you can hold it, if you're a me, myself and I RTO, you can hold your Q&C meeting at the same time as your webinar, and complete the minutes whilst you're at the webinar. So you should record all the actual data collected, and you should watch the webinar before you hold your monthly meeting. This Q&C meeting ties together all of your continuous improvement. So it's a really important meeting that you should be holding on a monthly basis, because it provides evidence that you're implementing the continuous improvement of all of the standards for RTOs on a monthly basis. And if you're doing CRICOS, you should be holding the monthly meeting as well to demonstrate that you're not only complying with the standards for RTOs, but you're also complying with the national code. So this meeting ties together all of that. That's the cycle. We've also had a look at the cycle, and you can now download that poster. These are the reporting, so it's really important that you remember, as stated earlier, we've had a number of clients whose registration, they've been threatened by ASQA. We've had 2 in the last fortnight. ASQA have sent them a letter to state that their registration is being cancelled because they did not submit their event report or their annual declaration of compliance. Really, really important that you must, it doesn't matter whether you've had students or not, you must be submitting these reports as they're required. So DPR, so your event report is due in February, your annual declaration of compliance is due in March, and you should also be submitting your quality indicator summary report at the end of this month, the end of June. Okay, so these, we had a look at the meeting agenda and the meeting templates for that. So the agenda items, that agenda you should be distributing to everybody in your organisation prior to the meeting. So it reminds them that this is what we're going to be. So it should be at least a week prior to the meeting that you should be distributing this. So it reminds people what you will be going through at that month's meeting. And then you'll be doing your minutes as well. Okay, so you should be conducting an annual internal audit of your organisation. This is the best way to ensure that you are compliant within your organisation. So it's a systems check of your organisation. So you should be holding an annual internal audit to ensure ongoing compliance. It's best to be conducted by a third party who's not directly involved with the RTO, like Vivacity. So Vivacity should be coming in on a yearly basis to assist you with identifying that you are compliant with the standards at all times. It also assists with the completion of the annual CEO statutory declaration of compliance, and you should get into a habit of conducting the audit on the anniversary of your registration. So whenever your registration, when you got your registration, you should be conducting an annual audit on the anniversary of your registration. It's a good way to celebrate. So we can have a look at your organisation to identify what your current compliance requirements. You'll see the procedure for conducting internal audits is within the Q&C manual. So check out the Q&C manual. It's under standard 2.2 within the Q&C manual. There's a new self-assessment tool that you can access from ASQA. This self-assessment tool is what ASQA are recommending that RTOs should be using to identify a self-assessment of the organisation against the standards. This new self-assessment tool is also a requirement to be used if you are if you are an RTO that's registered within the last 2 years, or if you're an initial registration right now and we haven't submitted you, from 1 July, all initial registrations must submit a self-assessment tool prior to, with their application for ASQA registration. So it's now going to be a requirement that all of your documentation has got to be submitted from the 1st of July. It's got to be submitted to ASQA as part of your registration process when we submit to ASQA. Also, the self-assessment tool is now going to be required to be completed every time you go to do an addition to scope within your first 2 years of registration. So you now need to complete the self-assessment tool and a financial viability whenever you go to do an addition to scope. I'm going to go into that further just a bit later, but it should be conducted prior to your annual declaration of compliance as well. So I said I was going to talk about the new process for initial registration. So these are the things that have changed. If you haven't seen it yet, check out our website. We've got the Vivacity update that I distributed on the 24th of May. So there's a new process for initial registration. At the ASQA briefing on the 23rd of May 2018, David Gardner, the General Manager of Regulatory Compliance, he went through what's been happening in the last year with ASQA, but he also did a lot of focus on new registrations and how it's going to affect anybody who is either applying for initial registration from the 1st of July or anybody who has been registered within the last 2 years. So if you haven't read it yet, check out the blog that I did. So the Vivacity update that I did last on the 24th, and I'm just about to post that again just for those latecomers who didn't get it in the chat box. So here is the Vivacity update that I distributed on the 24th of May, where we talk about what is going to be the effects on new registrations. So there was a focus. So what ASQA are trying to do is they're trying to focus on only ensuring that RTOs and providers who have a genuine intent and capacity to provide quality training gain registration. If they do not have a genuine intent and capacity to provide quality training, their aim is to deregister you. They don't want you to be registered if you do not have a genuine intent and capacity to provide quality training. So what they're doing now is they're making it tougher for initial registrations to gain registration. One of the good things that I noted in the webinar is that David Garner was actually very positive about the use of consultants. But what he was negative about is if you use consultants for the intent of getting registration with no intention to utilize those consultants on an ongoing basis to train you and teach you how to be compliant with the standards. Case in point is the two previous clients that we've had contact us in the last 2 weeks who aren't members, who did not receive updates on the new on the reporting requirements for vet misreporting and annual declaration of compliance. Like consultants, as a consultant, we help you remember and teach you how to submit those reports on an annual basis. So it's really important that you maintain, if you are going to use a consultant, that you use those consultants on an ongoing basis. And that's what ASQA has identified. It is difficult to maintain your registration when you don't understand what the requirements are. So ASQA have seen the importance of using consultants on an ongoing basis to teach you how to do that, which is what we do. We've always done that. It's always been part of our once you get registered, we have an ongoing membership program, which is what these webinars are all about, so that we can assist you with identifying how to improve your practices and maintain your compliance on an ongoing basis. So some of the other things that are going to affect RTOs is if you apply for an addition to scope within the first 2 years of your registration. So if you've only been registered for 2 years and apply for an addition to scope, you've got to go through the process of a self-assessment and financial viability in that each time you go to add a new qualification to your scope. The other change that's happening is from the 1st of July, there will only be 2-year registrations up until the 30th of June. There's still 7-year registrations, but from the 1st of July, it will only be 2-year registrations. But just because you get your registration in before this change doesn't mean you're not going to be affected. So what they used to do is they had a 1-year post-initial audit where they conducted a post-initial audit a year following your registration. They're now doing that 2 years following registration. And at that 2-year post-initial audit, so that's if you're registered prior to the end of this financial year, you'll have a 2-year post-initial audit, and at that audit, they will conduct an audit to identify, you said you were going to implement this, now we want to see evidence of that. So they want to see evidence of everything that you discussed at your audit for registration. So they want to see evidence of that. They want to see evidence of monthly meetings. They want to see evidence of your reports being submitted. They want to see evidence of you undertaking industry surveys on a regular basis. They want to see evidence of complaints and appeals process, WHS instances being reported. A big one is the monthly meetings and minutes of those meetings. That's the best way to actually identify that you are collecting evidence of feedback from industry, feedback from students and trainers as well through their trainers' reports, and then how are you acting on that data that you're collecting. So some of the other new ASQA requirements is, as a initial registration, you will be required to complete a financial viability assessment, but following registration, each time you add a qualification to your scope of registration within the first 2 years, you'll also need to conduct a financial viability assessment, and also prior to your 2-year post-initial audit, you'll also be required to complete a financial viability assessment. You'll also be required to complete a self-assessment for when you add a qualification to your scope and also prior to your post-initial. And you also need to declare on that self-assessment whether as a consultant assisted you through the process. So they're putting a much bigger focus now on consultants and their involvement during the audit process, which I think is a good thing. We've already got a really good rapport with many auditors with ASQA, so I actually think it's going to be a good thing with how it's going to affect the industry, and hopefully we'll get more and more people utilising consultants who actually teach them, so good consultants, just as there are dodgy RTOs out there, there are also dodgy consultants. So you want to have good consultants who are actually teaching you how to implement these policies and procedures into your organisation. There's also new requirements around fit and proper person form. So the fit and proper person form, you need to declare on that form any related persons so these are family members being de facto or non-de facto or married relations. So they're brothers, sisters, mothers, fathers, aunts, uncles, also husbands and wives and de facto relations as well, and their associations with any other providers, so RTOs and CRICOS providers. The reason why they're doing this is there's a lot of people out there who set up RTOs under relations, so they're trying to keep a track of who these people are and what they're doing. You also need to declare on the fit and proper person form whether you've had any previous associations with an RTO or CRICOS provider as well. So to learn more about that, you can also go to the ASQA website where they've got some information about that as well. Okay, in line with that, we've got a new membership package that we're releasing. It's coming out soon, so if you're on the old membership package, that will maintain. Basically, the old membership package, we have a PD membership, which is the bronze package, and the standard membership, which is the silver, which is now the silver compliance membership package. But what we're launching is we're launching a gold, ruby, and a platinum. So we've got a range of membership packages to assist our clients on an ongoing basis. So it's not just documentation that you can get now. So for Ruby, you can also get an annual systems check, 2 days of assessment validation where one of our team members will come out to your site and conduct. So they'll conduct and facilitate an assessment validation, 2 of those each year at your site. We'll also come out for a 1-day systems check. If you're doing both RTO and Cricos, we'll do a 2-day systems check at your site. And we can also include 2 days of face-to-face consultation at your site. For the platinum, you also get in that monthly, once a month, a consultant will come out to your site and they can actually hold the monthly meeting for you at your site. So we can hold a monthly meeting at your site and look at your compliance on a monthly basis. So we'll have one of our consultants come out and meet with you monthly. For that, we'll also do include workshops that you can do. So there's more workshops. Also webinars on how to maintain your business side of your organization. So we are now launching business coaching and business webinars, which is looking at the other side of the RTO. So it's looking at how to improve your practices within your organization, including marketing, business development, growth, finance, government funding, how to access it. We're going to be doing webinars on how to apply for government funding as well. That's only in the platinum package that we'll be doing that. Or also in gold, you can get it under the compliance and business package, which doesn't include your annual systems check and things like that. But we've got these. We're going to be distributing these soon. If you want to know more about our membership packages, please get in contact with, you can send an email to inquiries at vivacitycoaching.com.au and ask for the membership packages. And we'll send you out further details about the membership packages. But we're also just about to do an email campaign to everybody on our emailing list about the membership packages as well. So you'll find out more there. Okay, that's it for today. I just thought I'd let you know about what we're doing for membership. Do you have any questions about what we talked about today or anything else? You can post them now and I can review any of those questions you may have about what we reviewed today. I had one question, but I was still listening at the end. Thank you for conducting such a... Okay, excellent. Oh, look, okay, excellent. I've just got some feedback about the webinar, which is excellent. So it's good, some good feedback there. This webinar has been recorded. You will get access to a recording of the webinar. We'll also be putting this webinar on Unicorn as a webinar that people will be able to access, about reminding them about the monthly meetings and how to hold those monthly quality and compliance meetings. So it's a very important process for ensuring your ongoing compliance on a monthly basis. So the next webinar is going to be held on the 2nd of July, Monday the 2nd of July at 3 p.m. Thank you very much for attending today's webinar. I hope you got a lot out of it. And if you have any questions following, please don't hesitate to get in contact with us and someone on our team will be able to answer your question. If you have any concerns or questions about managing your ongoing compliance. So thank you very much for attending today's webinar. And we look forward to catching up with you next month. Thank you.